If you can come on in and grab a seat, we'll get cranked up. Just want to welcome everybody. Like you're having a good time with each other. It's good to gather back together as a family this afternoon. And we're just going to kind of come in here like we did 2 weeks ago and feel our way through the service. I kind of feel like right now, again, I'm going to do some teaching up front, and then we'll go wherever that needs to go. And again, it's good to see everyone. I hope you're staying well. Sharon and I are getting over colds and congestion and that kind of stuff, but we're doing fine right now. It seems to be a lot of that stuff going around, but hopefully you're doing okay. Let's do a couple of announcements just talking about where we are. Are we on live stream yet? We're good. Welcome. We are glad just to welcome you here to Saluda, South Carolina, wherever you might be this afternoon. We had a family here 2 weeks ago in the building from the Netherlands. That's crazy. We got anybody from Europe or somewhere overseas tonight? I know. That's just amazing to me on a random weekend that we're here in the United States, been following DTM for years and live streaming these services, and a young couple just came up and introduced themselves. They're probably back home now watching this by live stream. So wherever you might be, we just welcome you into our family gathering here on this Sunday afternoon and on the 5th day of December. So we're glad you're here. Let's cover a few announcements up front, and then we'll just kind of jump in and go as the Lord leads. Kristen, why don't you come and share a couple of specific announcements at this point.
Is that on? Okay. So Johnson, Lynn, and I were just talking about, coming up on Christmas. The church would love to help some people in need. We don't know too much about, any local needs. We did find out about one. Tyler Kitchens helped us connect with one local family here that has a really sick child that's having to get some treatment out of state, and really create a financial burden for them. So the church was able to help them a few months ago, and DTM is helping them as well. But we would love to know more about any families that you know of coming up to Christmas that the church could get involved with, helping Christmas gifts for kids, things like that. So email Logan. I know she's the one that you get the emails from week to week. So if you don't have that, you can go on to Hope Chapel's website and subscribe and sign up for weekly emails. But let her know if you know of anybody locally or anything that may be in need for Christmas, because I think that's something that we would just all love to be involved in any way we can.
Absolutely. Logan, raise your hand back there. Logan's back here, so if you feel something, you can actually, see her before you leave this afternoon. And so be sensitive to that. It gives us an opportunity to collectively and corporately do something that you might not be able to do individually. Yeah, that's part of the neat thing about being a part of an extended family like this. Okay, where are we going from here? We're going to take next weekend off again, and then 2 weeks from today, we will gather together in some form or fashion. We are working on what that needs to look like. It may be a communion service. It may be some socializing together and all that. But anyway, just keep your ears open. We're still in the process of seeing what that exactly needs to look like. But it'll give us time to meet together again right before Christmas. So just a reminder. So what does that mean next weekend? It gives you an opportunity to be real intentional in smaller gatherings. And I just want to... We're going to talk more about that, but I just think it's a real opportunity to connect in an intimate way that's difficult to do at this level, but that as we get further into this journey, we're starting to realize how significant that is, how important that is. I think that'll become clear. So that gives an opportunity for that type of thing. I just know this personally, when we've had these weekends off, it has given me and Sharon free space to really go deeper in a number of different areas. I don't want to get too much into that right now, but I just want to send you into some creative gatherings. If you get the notion of you want to have a bonfire and invite 10 people over, do it. And enjoy that time around that campfire that may seem unstructured, but then becomes a real opportunity for some encounter. and some connection, and in that place, some transformation. I get really excited about those types of opportunities. I could sit up here and give you story after story where that's happening in my world, where it's something you don't plan, but then you've got the space and the time where all of a sudden, just because you've gathered, it's safe enough and small enough where you might help somebody else to really get a little further down the road into the whole reason we all moved here, which I'm going to talk a little bit more about a little bit later. Okay, so that's next weekend. Gives you a lot of freedom to do that. So no service next Sunday. We'll announce a little bit more about way of email. Watch for Logan's email this week or like next week on the weekend of the 19th. There will be a youth Christmas party on Wednesday, December the 15th. That's Wednesday week at 6:30 right here in the building. So just continue to kind of keep up with that. In terms of giving, we'll just go ahead and get that done right now. You can use the links, those of you who are watching by live stream. Just want to say thank you again on behalf of DTM and Hope Chapel for your giving there. There are all kinds of links and events descriptions where you can do that online. I think most of you guys here already are familiar with Tithely in that type of way. We will have ushers at the doors at the end if you want to give the old-fashioned way and do that in person. So good. Great. Is that everything, guys? Kristen, I think that covers everything. We're good to go on that. Okay. Why are we not starting off with music? I mean, I got a funny text message 2 weeks ago where somebody said, "That's the best service I've ever had since I left the Church of Christ." Everybody who's Church of Christ understands that, because that's the crowd that doesn't have music. I was riding home and I went, that's just hilarious. Best service I've had since I left the Church of Christ. Are we going Church of Christ? No, we'll probably be worshiping before the day's over with. But this is just all part of, I think, what we're feeling in terms of this long period of transition. I don't even know if transition's the right word to use. But this journey we've been on for the last 2 years, it has been disruptive in terms of routine. How does that feel? Does that fit? That it's been disruptive, that it's changing patterns. And here's a pattern I think we've fallen into in this family. Okay, you listening? Because I think it's a pattern that's going to be disruptive. And we in leadership, we're talking about this, how it's real easy to come in here and feed off of the energy of what's going on up here. And when this group gets up and they begin manifesting the frequency that they can manifest, it's easy for you and I to piggyback off of that. That will create an emotional surge. That will create some real exchange. I'm not saying that's bad, but I think there's a more excellent way that's beginning to be suggested to us. So what was good for a long time in terms of being able to come in and create energy around a meeting, energy around a praise team that's talented and capable of moving in the flow, but at the end of the day doesn't require much of you and I seated where we are. Does that make sense? Am I being clear? You know what it's like to come in this room on the weekend, and here it is to the highest level. To come in here on a weekend of Carolina Revival. The place is packed. You know, you got an expectation about what's going to happen, right? Pay attention to your expectation. But there's a lot of energy around that meeting. That's not bad, but still, it doesn't require a lot of you. And I think Holy Spirit, in an extended season, when we've not been able to meet like we used to meet, is trying maybe through a backdoor kind of way to show us something. So what I want to do today is encourage you to embrace the disruption. Even the disruption of the familiar. If you were honest with yourself, you might be a little frustrated. I hope you're beyond that, but if you aren't, then that's okay. I'm not going to get mad at you, but you may be a little frustrated that it doesn't look or feel like what it used to. Let's even get a little more honest. Can we do that? You might be feeling some frustration that Damon's not here. I don't take that personally. I don't get hurt. My feelings don't get hurt that you're like, well, dang, I'd really like to hear Damon. I love you, Johnson, but man, this apostolic teaching, I missed it. I got blah, 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 blah. And that may pick up on a little bit of what you're feeling, what you're bringing into the room. Now, can I, in love, say it's time to deal with that? That also, too, is a part of where we are as a family in terms of what God's just the word I keep hearing over and over. Hey, Ben, I didn't see you back there. It's good to see you. That over and over again, we're reconfiguring. We're in a time where things are being shuffled around. And here's where the road can fork. You can either go in the direction of complaint and frustration. Let me go ahead and tell you, that's never real productive. That's never really going to get you ultimately in a good place. So that's got to be worked through where you finally begin to embrace, this is where we are. I don't want to be here. But I'm embracing being here, and I can see something of the bigger picture about where this is all taking this family. So, you with me? Is that clear? So hear me loud and clear. I want you to embrace how this looks this afternoon as a part of the family coming together in early December 2021. Will it look this way in 6 months? I guarantee you it won't. Will it look like it did 18 months ago? I guarantee you it won't. There may be times it looks like that. There may be times that we come together and you'll go like today and you'll go, we've never done this before. We've never gathered in this way. So here's what I want to ask you to do right now at 2:19, whether you're in the building or on live stream. Can you make that internal shift? Just go ahead and do it. We've been teaching you how to do this, so just go ahead and do this so that you can go, okay, I have to admit, I'm feeling a little bit of A, B, C, and D. Even tag it back to the last 18 months. You may have been frustrated about the whole deal, that we haven't been meeting and that we're off and all. Just, can you right now begin just to offer that and make the shift so that this moment of time can become creative for you. It's creative for me right now. It's not fun all the time, but it is incredibly creative for me right now. Tense at times, uncomfortable at times, but creative. And I want that to be for everybody who's in this room, everybody who's listening by live stream, everybody who will pick up a podcast in the next couple of weeks. Well, let's just say it again for clarity. We're not where we were 6 months ago. Okay? That good? We're certainly not where we were a year and a half ago. And where we are today is not going to be where we are 3 months from now, 6 months from now. And I feel real good about that. I feel real good about that. I feel like I am supposed to be standing in front of you saying what I'm saying right now. I'm not standing in front of you because I feel pressure that I have to do this because Damon's not here, because Matt's not feeling well, and he's not here. Lyndon's doesn't feel like preaching today. And I feel no pressure to preach. I feel a real flow for us just to enter into a more in-depth family conversation, if you can say. It's just me as Pastor Johnson talking to the Hope family and to the extended family, by live stream. I'm glad you're watching by live stream. You need to know that my primary focus is this group right here. I'm glad you're here, and I know you will pick up on what's going on because what's happening here is not unique to just this place. Now, you'd be surprised how I keep hearing similar language that is encouraging me. Let me use one of Apostles' phrases to help you understand where we are, because this is exactly why I think we are where we are. 2 years ago at least, maybe a little further, some of you may have actually cataloged in your notes. I do somewhere, I just haven't checked it out. But he started talking about a shift of consciousness when it comes to the nature of God. Everybody understand that? You grow up in a worldview. Most of you in this room probably grew up in a religious context where your notion of God was bent in the direction of punishment, legalism, kind of a contractual kind of deal. If you do A, B, C, D, then he will do A, B, C, D. If you don't do A, B, C, D, then he's going to kick your tail. Or you're going to, and I probably don't, I wish Putman was here because, and Tyler, you can jump in on this too, because I didn't grow up in that. My issues are different, and I too am in the midst of a shift of consciousness. It's just not out of that. But I think from what Damon has said and what he and I've agreed is that probably 90% of the people in this room can identify with that because you grew up either in an evangelical or charismatic or a hybrid of those two cultures coming together, which really has fostered this Western judicial, he's got a black robe on, he's got a gavel in his hand, you're on the defense stand and the devil's the prosecuting attorney, and Jesus is coming in to take the fall for you so that God doesn't vent his wrath on you. Let me just say this to you. That is a consciousness of God. Now, what do I mean by consciousness? What does Damon mean when we talk about consciousness? That's kind of a fancy word, but what I want you to simply see it as a lens by which you see God. Not just mentally. That's real easy to talk about. The more difficult shift is the shift that's got to occur here in the lens of the heart. How does my heart see God? See, what I'm doing right now is I'm engaging you on the level of the intellect. And it's real easy for your mind to understand the language I'm using, correct? You're following. This is not hard to follow. But how to make that shift down in the belly, that's where it's more difficult. Yet that is where the shift has to occur. Now let's go a little deeper though. That's where we've been for a couple of years. So what is this all about? Is this about the coronavirus pandemic? Heck no. Is that a piece of it? Is it a piece that has thrown us into this larger arena of a shift of consciousness? Absolutely. In fact, our world's going through a shift of consciousness around some of that. So we've been in this a couple of years, and I believe the first stages of this are a shift of consciousness that will lead into what Yahweh really intends, which is this, a transformation of consciousness. It's not enough just to shift. It's not enough just to come out. It's more important, or the end game is to bring you into something you currently are not in or that you haven't been in because of the worldview you're coming out of, which is that shift of consciousness. Okay, if he's not that, then what is he? Now, I just had a real spontaneous, extemporaneous talk with Tyler 10 minutes before worship. Cut your microphone on. Man, because I just want you to, because this is a great illustration. He's going to use language that I think is going to help articulate what I'm trying to say. make that shift, okay? Tell them how where you are in that process and that how you described it here, not here, no longer that.
So just quickly, it's a real interesting shift for me. I grew up with the God that loved me enough to send Jesus, but he was so dang mad at me all the time that I was constantly trying to convince him and myself that I wouldn't screw up again. And so after 2020 being tumultuous everywhere and this shift in consciousness really started to take place, I have felt a complete death to that version of God, both here and here. And the new version of what I consider to be really him, I have a really good view of here. But I have not been able to connect the dots here to get him here. And I think, as we were talking, I kind of pointed my finger to it. Like, I don't carry, like, a broken heart in the sense of, like, I'm sad. But I think that it deals with my heart on some level is still broken that the version of God that I really had committed my life to does not exist. And so now I'm seeing this version of him that's a lot better than that version, but my heart it just doesn't trust that yet. And so to me that's huge. That's the issue.
Yeah. Do you hear what he's saying? Don't run off just yet. What he's saying is he's no longer in that world here or here in terms of the judicial punitive view of God. And now what we're talking about today, and we haven't really articulated, well, what's he really like? We'll go through some review on that. But what he's saying is, I am seeing him differently here, but my heart, and I make sure I'm using your language, my heart is not there yet. Fair enough? And so how does that feel for you?
So for a while that kind of manifested in me just genuinely feeling unhappy, but not being able to point my finger to anything. And
that's good.
So what I think will help you is, like, my life is great, my kids are great, my marriage is great, my work is, like, everything's great, but there's this general unsettling. And so me and Jude were walking out of the woods some point this last week, and we're just walking in, and hunting with Jude is, like, amazing, but it's also like herding cats, you know. So, but we're walking in. He's quieter walking in than he is when we're sitting there, but we're walking in, and literally, I think this will help you. I felt like, as simple as it sounds, I was like, I'm happy. Like that is my choice. Like, I don't have anything to be unhappy about. I mean, every circumstance is great all the time, but in general, I'm happy. And so I'll be a little transparent. Like your family feels that if you have something that's unsettled. And so Whitney thought that when I got in that I was just trying to, like, make them feel better. Not about them. They were good. About me. That, like, I was okay. But it really wasn't. It was just a choice. Like, that I was, and I would have told you before that, well, you can't just make that choice. Like, something's not quite right in here. But it really was as simple as, like, I'm going to choose to be happy. Like, I know that God is good. And so I know that ultimately everything that's here is going to get to here. So if I don't rush that process, it will work out in here. It's just going to take some time, you know. And the good thing is I don't think that this version of him sending me to hell. So I feel like I have time to process it. Yeah. So
yes.
That's a plus for me.
That's huge. Yeah. Otherwise, you're still in the performance trap. You know, which is a part of the old deal, is now he may be freed from it, but if he feels like he's got to get it done in a certain amount of time and get it done well so that he's looking good, you're still trapped. And that's a heart issue. That's how the heart works. The mind kind of knows better, but the mind doesn't drive the bus. Y'all need to hear that. So in some sense, he's still in between buses. And if the heart thing is not finished, I'll go ahead and predict something. He'll divert back to the original bus. It may be dead, but if he doesn't have a new bus that the heart feels like it can trust and enter in, then you're not going to get on that bus. I got a friend of mine, Chandler. You'll laugh at this, Jeff Miller. I remember Jeff years ago. You can just sit right there. I don't want to leave. Okay, Jeff is on an airplane at JFK, I believe, going to Ghana to our Father's House orphanage. Jeff's a guy I used to run with 20 years ago, and Chanda spent a year at their orphanage. Chanda and Jake spent a year over in Ghana at that orphanage 10 years ago now. That's crazy. But I remember Jeff getting on an airplane that was delayed at JFK, supposed to go to Ghana. And the plane got delayed so long, there was almost a riot on the plane. Seriously, a serious riot. And he finally looked at his mom and said, I'm not supposed to go. And so he gets off the plane. Now, why am I telling that story? Is Jeff followed his heart. Now, the plane didn't crash. Nothing didn't happen like that. It wasn't a disaster like that. But he had to get in a situation where all of a sudden his mind may have told him one thing, but his heart ultimately dictated his response. That's the transition we're in. Before I let you jump back up, he identified 4 stages. Something shifts here. Let me give you an example of what that looks like. I'm here to tell you that 1 John chapter 4 is true. God is love. Do you intellectually agree with that statement? Anybody disagree? You may go, well, what about that verse over there? What about, okay, we'll talk about that. But according to John, God is love, right? Okay, you just got past that hurdle. But how then do I die to this notion inside of me that's tensed up, anxious, that wakes up in the middle of the night, fearful that I don't measure up? Fearful that I've got to do something. Fearful, on and on and on. Ashamed because of this. You can hear a voice. You can hear a tonality. I've got to be aware that I can use a certain tone of voice up here that'll send some of you immediately back into a place, into a consciousness. Stage 2 is when it gets in here and all of a sudden I begin to go, I'm not there anymore. I don't wake up with those dreams anymore. Stage 3 is I'm able then to embrace he's not that, but he is this. And then when it gets finished is when it's congruent in the heart at that level. Come on back in and jump in. This is good. Thank you, Tyler. He didn't want to do this. He really did not. I had to just finally make him, right? So now he's enjoying it. Look at him. He's like, here we go. Come on, baby.
The part you said about going back to the old version, there's some level of being comfortable with having certitude about something, even if you're wrong. And so I heard a song this week. It's called, you can go listen to it. It's Cody Johnson. It's called Man on the Moon. And then it's a new song by his. And in it, and it really identified for me how I have thought about God in the past. Because in it, the whole point of it is that God doesn't know anything about love. He's all powerful. But, and he's talking about in the sense of like relationships. But it really tells on that paradigm because he says, God talking to him says, I can move the tide and I can make the mountains tremble, but I don't know much about love.
Wow.
Actually, I think it says I know nothing about love. And I'm sitting there listening to the song thinking to myself, like, not only does he know, like, he is love, but in that world that I'm very familiar with, that is a foreign concept. So I have had a moment, longer than a moment, because I don't want to minimalize that. But there have been times where I have looked at where we're headed in terms of who God is and the uncertainty of what that will ultimately look like in my heart, and then looked back at what I came out of. And I can usually pinpoint the worst parts of those moments. Mine was in a truck in Edgefield. I'm not a great driver, and so it doesn't. Lyndon can. One time Lyndon was sick, and I had to drive him home. It was so bad. It was so bad. That's a rabbit trail, but you can ask him about that later. But so if I say I needed to pull over because I was crying, that's really exacerbated by the fact that I'm already a bad driver. So like I'm driving through Edgefield, and like I really need to find a spot, but I can't because I'm having this conversation with the Lord, and this is literally what I'm saying to him. if you are the God that I can stand up in front of people and say, if you don't know him, raise your right hand, repeat this prayer, and give your life to Jesus, and everything's going to be good. If you're that version, and that's enough to change the world, I will gladly accept that. But if you're this God that is all-powerful, and it's so much more than that, that's what I really want. But I'm willing to go either direction, and that was really kind of a hinge point for me of what you're talking about. If you don't ultimately get it fixed on the level of the heart, you will revert back to that, because it is the only thing you were ever certain of. Because in the process of clearing all that out, you're uncertain. In the process of having it fixed here, you're uncertain. Because certitude only comes at the level of the heart. And so if you can't get certitude there, you ultimately slink back into the last thing that you were certain about.
The heart drives the bus. If you need a scripture, guard your heart. Above Proverbs 4:23, above all else, guard your heart, for from it flow the issues of life. Out of the man's mouth, so does the heart speak. You will go in the direction of your heart ultimately. A lot of us, and part of the dysfunctional religion we grew up in, or some of you grew up in, I didn't, but I mean, in terms of this, was then we'll get into the devil stuff. Well, the devil did this. Well, the devil's just this. The devil this. The devil, he's attacking me. No, he's not. I can hear Damon's voice right now. No, he's not. Probably 95% of what you're dealing with is you. It's your heart. Can a demonic frequency attach itself to that? Absolutely. But I'm to the place now where you can do deliverance, cast out the demon ministry all day long. But if you don't get the heart structure intact, he's going to come back. The real issue is the heart. It's not the demonic thing. That can obviously create a problem. I'm not going to deny that. I've seen it. But ultimately, the heart being coherent at every level of its being is what's going to shift your consciousness. That's why this is why we're shifting. Is what I want to see is a higher level of heart engagement when we come together around beloved identity and around a posture in the family that will enable a shift of consciousness. The question you need to ask yourself really is, what's going to bring about the shift? Do we need to have 27 meetings in 27 days for that to happen? It can. That can certainly facilitate it. There may be some times in our future where we do that. But there needs to be more. There's got to be an attitude you possess towards your heart that will facilitate what you're describing. And that's what I feel like is vitally important. So let's just kind of walk through this. So if we're in a several year-long shift of consciousness that started around how we view God in our hearts, realizing that didn't add up to him as he really is, so we start engaging a process, we start engaging a relationship that begins to break that old world down, right? I think we're somewhere right where you are. If we divvied up this room this afternoon, we'd all be at some point or another along that continuum. Some of you who are there's probably somebody here today for the first time, and you've come in with a certain set of expectations, maybe issues, maybe longings, maybe yearnings, and you're wanting to break out of something. There'll be people listening to live stream today for the first time, and you'll resonate with something he said or something I'm saying, or just a feeling that says, y'all are talking about what I'm feeling. Then it's that longing to get out of something that maybe all of you in this room couldn't articulate 10 years ago, but now you know what it is. It's a consciousness, it's a filter, it's a lens that then becomes a way of living life. That now that's being broken down. That takes time. It takes intentionality. I'm gonna say something maybe we don't like to say. It's going to take some work. You won't get there by being lazy. That may be part of what he's after here. It would be easy to come in and go, man, Paige, I just want to hear you sing. Tyler, Gary, whoever, I need that to get me revved up. Then I can start, feeling some stuff. That's laziness. Now, a more excellent way would be, let's engage a process of having something deep inside of me shift so much that it transforms not only how I see him, but how I see myself. That it changes the energetic frequency I operate in. Your heart, whether you know it or not, has a magnetic field that can be measured by scientific instruments. There are people who are doing this in gatherings. I hate to say it, none of them are in church. But they'll have a holistic kind of gathering, hook people up to monitors to monitor the energetic wavelengths of people's hearts. And it can be good or it can be bad. Imagine yourself back in the old days. You're back over here in the pre-shift of consciousness. How would you like to be hooked up to one of those machines there? What do you think the energetic frequency of a heart is of somebody who's wed to a consciousness of God that scares them to death? What's that going to do for healing? What's it going to do for wholeness? What's it going to do to sustain life? So that's the bigger picture. That ultimately, the transformation of how you view things really shifts into and here's where it is. What's it all about? Where are we going? Where's this bus going? Where does God want us to go? Where's this family going? It's all about blank, blank. What is it? It's all about beloved identity. Here we go. Now you can set the recorder. And if you're frustrated about that, you might not be in the right place. Or if you think, we've got that, Johnson, let's move on, then that's an indicator that you really haven't gotten it. Because I think here's what the deal is. Here's my journey. 2016, I have a series of encounters 5 years ago right now. And by the time I get on the other side, and I can remember walking in here on a Sunday morning feeling a little bit of pressure to preach. And Damon standing over here, and he could see what was going on with me, and he said, "Don't you stop this." And I didn't. And I fell 5 years ago into a depth of divine love, where a Jonathan David Helzer song probably expressed what I was feeling better than anything when he said, "All I know is that I've been found by love." And that song trafficked with me for weeks in November and December of 2016. Okay? Now, my mind, interestingly enough, Tyler, my mind did not grasp what my heart already grasped. In this case, my heart was ahead of my mind. My heart stepped across a line that ushered me into a whole new world. Let me put it in another way. A whole new consciousness. I stepped into something and went, and I knew enough by mid-December 5 years ago, I've not been here before. Can anybody in this room identify what I'm saying? Of going into a place where you go, wow, I've never been here before. It took me a year to get some verbiage to go, whoa. It took 2 years to really begin to go, it took 3 years for me to say this, and I said it publicly, which would have said 2019. I began to go, guys, I think what I stepped into was so significant that I would describe it as being born again. Now, what I want you to note from that is it took me 3 years to have that consciousness, an awareness of what I stepped into in 2016. I didn't even have language intellectually to go, stepped into a whole new world. That's why now, 5 years into it, the last 2 years make sense to me. I can see why 20 and 20 stumbled along for me, and why 2021 is continuing. I can understand why I'm right where I'm at standing in front of you today. It's clear as a bell. It's clear as a bell. I can tell you why you are, as long as you're here. You know what it's about? He is wanting you. O-N-E-ing. Let me give you a scripture. John 17, 22 through 23. Let me just put my autopilot on here because I can quote it in the middle of the night. You know, that you may be made perfect in one. He wants to bring us into a place of perfect oneness with perfect love. You know what the result of that is? You finally become beloved identity. That's why I'm saying if he is in stage 3, so to speak, he's not completely seated in beloved identity yet. He's in the process of it. So am I. So are we. What if it takes the rest of our lives to birth a consciousness of what he sees when he sees you as beloved? It's no accident that in January and February of 2020, we go up to Kannapolis, North Carolina, and Damon lands the Hephzibah message in our lap. And that's the last message we got before we went into pandemic mode. Because what is Hephzibah? Hephzibah is the consciousness God desires for everybody in this room to operate in. The absolute frequency of his delight is in me. And there's no blowback, there's no but, there's no maybe, there's no however, there's no conflict, there's no struggle. I am beloved. I am the apple of his eye. He really, really, really is infatuated with me. See, intellectually, everybody understands that, but I'm feeling an awful lot of blowback. Now, the day's going to come when we come together and we're going to come in this room in the collective gathered energy of our beloved identity. And you're going to come in the door, and Damon prophesied this, you're going to come in the door glowing. And you won't need me talking, you won't need Paige singing. You're just going to come in, and when we come in having been made perfect in one. 20 years ago, you know what I used to think that was about? Unity. In good Baptist understanding of unity. We all got to be united, which means we can't be fighting. Mighty God, is that it? You know, we're going to be nice to each other. You know, that's probably one of the secular worldview of Christians is that they're supposed to be nice. Is that it? Is that the shift that's going to change the cosmos? No, it's not. But what's going to change the cosmos is you radiating at the frequency of Hephzibah. You understand that? Now, we're in the middle. I'm not sure we're in the middle yet. We're in the early days of that happening, of you working out your salvation with fear and trembling. Oh my gosh, I used the fear word, Tyler. Some of you immediately went, I knew it. I'm screwing this up and God's going to get me. No, I'm talking about reverence. and awe and wonder and excitement and approaching the process with an absolute understanding of how holy it is. It is a necessary work. Therefore, I have to, now here's where it gets fun. Therefore, I have to take the issues of my heart very seriously, because the heart issues are what are ultimately going to get you on the bus of beloved identity or not on the bus of beloved identity. It's not you sitting in here on a Sunday afternoon listening to me, and I'm going to go ahead and say it, or listening to Damon Thompson. That's being disrupted to take you deeper. The apostolic message has been very clear, and it's sufficient, and we've got enough to exegete on that the rest of our lives. Amen? That didn't sound real convincing. But I'm telling you the truth. I honor Damon as much as anybody in this room. And I have walked intimately with him the last 5 months. But I am not codependent on what comes out of his mouth. Nor should you be. And you're certainly not going to get codependent on me. You don't have to worry about that. Thank goodness. I don't have the gift to get that codependent. Thank goodness. But this is not that. Right? That may have been the catalyst to get you here, to get you engaged in a process, and to get you involved in a journey that's going to seat you in the highest places you can imagine being seated, beloved identity. And it may take the rest of your life and your children's life until this consciousness is so shifted that it transforms how we look at the world. And that literally we become an incarnated frequency of his love and his life. I know that I know that I know that's what this is about. So, that's why from time to time it's important to come in and not just go, all right, let's get my praise on, and feed off the energy of somebody else. Let me go ahead and just tell you right now, there's not an ounce in me today that needs you to feed off me. I don't. My day's not going to be any better because I taught this afternoon. I'm not going to feel any better if I get back in the car and go, oh man, I was pumping on all cylinders this afternoon, versus if I felt like it was a complete flop. My identity's not there. I don't need the energy of you. Nor does Damon, for that matter. Now, hear me. I don't want to sound like I'm saying that's what you're doing, okay? But I do think it's instructive for all of us in what can be a confusing and disorienting time to go, oh yeah, this is about that. Then what I'm hoping that does is that it energizes every one of us in the room to go home and work the process that's necessary to bring you into perfect oneness with perfect love. Ideally, if you're going to have a cookout next Saturday night, it may require more than just sitting around the campfire, popping a few cans open. But it may require somebody taking a risk to go, here's where my heart is. Does anybody else tracking with this? Am I alone? If this is where I'm struggling, this is what I'm starting to see. You see? And watch what can happen around that kind of gathering. I feel a vibration inside of me that says that's a huge piece of our future that may be as important as some of the stuff we thought was the big deal. I'll just go ahead and tell you how my approach to meetings has been all along. It's kind of the cherry on top of the cake or the icing, but it's never been it hasn't. On one level, I know we need each other. There is an interdependence that he's trying to create that you can't do by yourself. I'll go ahead and tell you, you can't get to beloved identity by yourself. You won't. But you won't get there codependent or enmeshed in other relationships. That's part of, I believe, what's on me is to help delineate that. To be able to say to somebody, you're still in a dysfunctional place. Or your little gathering's in a dysfunctional place. Or this is, you see? If we're going to be healthy, we've got to be healthy. And we've got to be healthy at the level of the heart. That's why it's incumbent upon you and me to finish the shift. And to do it at the level of the heart, which requires relationship, which requires something we've been talking a lot about, and I want you to see it in a whole new light today. You won't get to oneness. Everybody listen. You're not going to get there without the ability to be able to do one thing at the level of the heart and to do it consistently and to do it well. And I'm not talking about grading you on it. But it's going to require this. I've got my Hebrew word for it, but I don't want to turn it into a formula. I don't want to turn this into a technique. I hate formulas. They typically don't work. Let me give you the 7 steps to blah, blah, blah. I've not had that work for me yet. Have you? This is a hard thing to do. At what level are you seated in your chair in this room, which is a real low level today of requirement for this, but at what level are you open or closed? At the level of the heart. You see, we're at some level of this. We won't get to perfect oneness until I learn to live my life completely at every level of my heart wide open. I'm not there yet. I instinctively, when I'm around certain folks, nobody in here, of course, right? But I'll do this. You? I'll find myself closing up, and then I can't give them what's in me. This requires this. What could happen if 150 of us or so could come in here so secure in our beloved identity that it will not matter to me if you can't receive me, I'm still going to stay open. That I am so free from the fear of rejection. Am I preaching now? I am so free of entanglement in that I will allow all of me to radiate into a group. That I don't have to sit back here going, well, I can see that guy over there. He just ain't, I'm not jihading with him. He's just not getting my vibe. And I'll be honest, I'm sensitive to this kind of stuff. When we come in here, there's a high level of this still. I call it ambivalence. Is it like going into a Baptist church that's been having a fight for the last 6 months? Heck no. We don't have drama. You've heard Damon say that. We're relatively devoid of drama. Hey, check that off the list. But what we're still in the middle of is, can I stay open? I mean, come on, just look around the room and be honest and go, not. And I'm not saying, because we're not there yet. I'm not saying share your pearls with everybody in the room. There are details of my life that I may not share with everybody in this room. That doesn't mean I'm closed. But there will become a day. You mean, what about the book of Acts? They had all things in common. They were one. What does that mean? They were nice to each other. No. They probably weren't nice to each other. Because this involves getting real. This involves saying, we're about to have a conversation that's going to be real difficult, and our relationship may not survive this conversation. But I love you enough, and I love life enough, where we're going to have to do this. Now you see what I'm talking. This is essential. We will not get there. Write this down. Unless, as a family. unless we learn to do this. But I just want you to know, I feel a real grace to help steward this. I really do. That's why we're not going on as business. We could have started today and it'd have been fine and everybody would have felt good. I feel good anyway. Bless your heart. It's all right. I feel that way too sometimes. Yesterday morning I felt that way. I had to do a little bit, You see? That's transparent, by the way. There's no filter there. There's no filter there. But by golly, I'm filtered. I found that out yesterday morning. Can we get real? This thing's only going to work by getting real. And I promise I'm going to behave myself today. I'm not going to talk about anybody. And I'm not going to say anything on live stream that I may regret tomorrow. Y'all didn't listen to me 2 weeks ago because you're not laughing. You don't know what I did 2 weeks ago. Anyway, doesn't matter. Yesterday, I wake up at 4 something in the morning with, I had a dream. Psychologists in the room. We just share the dream. See, it's a good dream. KK figured it out, all right? I'm on an elevator with a bunch of people, and there's a guy on the elevator that's just a jerk, and he's over by the controls. So he's dictating where the elevator is going, and guess who's not? And so the building has 6 floors in it. Some of you really prophetic people, you'll get something on the number 6. I don't care. That's really not what I got. But the guy pushes the 6th floor. The elevator goes to the 6th floor. It's jam-packed. Everybody exits the elevator. And for some reason, Wes Green, I think you and I are the only 2 people left on that elevator. I'm pretty sure it's you and me. I'm not positive you were in the elevator, but I told Sean, I said, I think Wes was in that elevator with me. I don't know what that means, man, but you and I. Then the guy, as he's leaving the elevator, monkeys with the buttons in such a way when he's gone, we can't configure where the elevator's going to go. For some reason, we've been wanting to get off on the 5th floor. But as soon as the door closes, the elevator starts crashing to the ground. I mean, the cables are gone. It's flying to the ground, and I'm scared to death. But all of a sudden, in the middle of the free fall to the ground, I start levitating in the elevator. Wes, I hate to tell you, you weren't levitating, but hey, that's terrible. And come on, now you really are offended. Stay open, brother. But you were calm. You were looking up at me. You weren't freaking out. But I just started, if something goes to the ground real fast, gravity's going to throw you to the ceiling, right? It wasn't that. It was like a. But then I interrupted the whole thing and woke up out of breath, panicked, and fearful. Somebody, please tell me what that's all about. Now, I think I got an idea. I think it's about control. I think it's about losing control. And I think it's about being held when you're not held. And I'm in the process, you see. I'm somewhere in the middle of all of that. So then I wake up and I start sitting down and I start engaging. And I begin to realize real quickly there are 2 particular issues that are keeping me from falling into the rest that I know is my beloved identity. But for the life of me, I can't seem to get beyond those 2 issues. And I know you're dying to know what they are, right? I'm not going to tell you. But I've already told her. And here's what I want you to know. I've been married to her 40 years. And I know the requirement sometimes to work through stuff is you've got to do the James 5:16 thing. That's another teaching for another day. But you've got to confess your faults to one another. I'll take some liberty with that text and say I think it goes beyond just confessing your sin. Because I've got a pretty embracive view of sin. Me freaking out on the elevator, that's sin. Because that's me falling short of my divine intention to be in rest. Am I condemned about it? No. See, there's the difference, right? Oh, well, I just missed it here. He's going to be severe with me. He's not going to be happy with me. He's going to punish me. No. Not at all. So I've got a couple of things that are monkeying with me to the point that I'm starting to feel sick on my stomach. It's enough anxiety around the two. Now, notice what, you see how quiet it's getting? It's starting to touch the heart because it's real. And I know the drill. I know the process. And I know I need to call and talk to somebody. I could have called Lyndon and said, Lyndon, here's what I could have called you. But she was the nearest human being in proximity to me, so I grabbed her. But here's what happened. And this is what you need. You don't need to know the two things. I mean, it wasn't anything horrible. But that's not the point. What was the point was I got in touch with shame about having to do this with her. That wasn't something sexual, or anything like. It wasn't anything like that at all. It was just an emotional state of anxiety that I needed to get real with her. And I got in touch with something on the inside I'm going to tell you about in just a second that caused me to do this. I pulled back. I pulled back over what was a lie inside of me over to somebody I tell everything to. And all of a sudden, I'm getting in touch with some shame. And the moment I get in touch with it, I hear a voice inside my head saying, you should be better than this. What's the matter with you? Why are you still struggling with this? You ought to be further along. By gosh, you're 60 years old. All that going on inside of me. Am I talking to anybody? All in the middle of an attempt to be real in an area when I went to bed on Friday night, I did not anticipating waking up on Saturday morning having this crisis. So I engaged. And I even said to her, I need you pretty quickly before I pull back and get in my shell. Anybody in the room know what I'm talking about? Like a turtle withdrawing into your shell. Once you fall back into the shell, it's real hard to come back out. Then you do this number. No, I'm good. If you're religious, you go, well, me and Jesus took care of it. I'm fine, honey. I gave it to the Lord. I gave it to the Lord. Sometimes that's okay, so long as you're not having the inner battle. And see, that's where this is where it gets tricky. Because we too easily, it's just me and the Lord. We got it all figured out. No, you don't. That's avoidance. That's you not dealing with the resistance. So I went through this process where I said, you need to get in here and you need to get in here quick. And I got her to sit down and I said, here it is. And as I was doing it, it was so vulnerable. It felt so naked. It felt so vulnerable. I know I got the reputation of being Mr. Vulnerability, but now I'm yesterday morning being vulnerable, and I find this queasiness in my stomach that says, and there's a voice going, I don't like this. I'm ready to pull the covers back up. I'm ready to go into hiding a little bit. That's easier. I'm good. And I would have fallen short of an opportunity presented to me yesterday morning. This happens all the time, by the way. This is everyday stuff. Sometimes it's big, sometimes little. But I would have missed an opportunity by seeing that all the way through with her, the other side of it, and I realized, why am I queasy? Well, somebody please psychoanalyze me and tell me why I'm queasy. I'm queasy because I'm afraid that I really, honestly, there's something inside of me that still doesn't like being that vulnerable. It's just too hard. It's just too exposing. You see what I'm saying? Not always. Some things are easy to be vulnerable about. But yesterday morning, that tapped into a place that still needed to be opened up. Now, once I finally got through it, by lunchtime, I felt an energetic shift that I'm still riding on the coattails of today. I feel an intimate connection on the inside. I feel an enfolding. I feel a level of shame has been pulled back. She and I have been emotionally and spiritually. I've hugged her twice since then, very intensely, and both times have broken down and cried. Why? Because I felt, hear me, I felt a level of oneness with her that I could not have felt if I had not done this. It's true here. That's where we are. This is dead. This is dead. Now can I engage the God is love at the very level I need love? Let me put it this way. I wrote this down and it seemed like it really kind of hit the spot. There is a place in Todah I am required to go that I don't want to go, but that I have to go to in order to be taken into oneness. There's a place that I don't want to go. It's a place you don't want to go. There's a place we don't want. What if we're in a moment of time right now? Let's go right back to the beginning of the service. That we're in a moment of time that's going to require a level of openness and surrender and transparency in order for you to navigate to the place he wants to take you to. But there's a place in Todah that he will try to take me that I, in honesty, don't want to go. Like yesterday morning, but that I have to go to in order for the transformation of my consciousness to take place. See, this thing about transformation consciousness sounds real mystical, but it's really face to face. This is the heart of this movement. How many years has it been when Damon started preaching 1-to-1, 121 Homestead Road, face to face? Wednesday was 12-1-2-1. 1-2-1-2-1. Then it's a palindrome going backwards. 1-2-1-2-1. Then you told me Thursday was a perfect palindrome. There's a thing here. He's speaking. It's about perfecting oneness. And there's something beautiful and scary. And by the way, before it can ever happen here, it's got to happen here. I can't come in here and do this with you guys if she and I are not connected. Not one. So if you want to talk about government, you want to talk about order, if you're married, it starts with you and your husband or you and your wife. First of all, it starts with me and Yahweh in the secret place. Being real, being open, being honest, submitting that to the love of my life, who is my helpmate, my soulmate, who can give me pretty darn good feedback. That's essential. Can I be at Todah with that? Lyndon and I have been running together now for 11 years in earnest. Could I have called him yesterday and said, Lyndon, here's what's going on. Could he with me? Can we do that? Can you do that? Do you have a circle that you can be totally transparent, totally honest? What did I say 2 weeks ago? Love or relationships require honesty. And I left a piece out, and I felt like it's more than that. Actually, relationships require trust. And it requires a level of trust. Can I be honest with you? You see? Let's just be real. This is superficial. But I could have come in here today. We could have come in here, and I could have said to the praise team, let's just go on about business as usual. We'll sing for 30 minutes, and we'll run and do some prophetic stuff, because whenever they do that, it gets prophetic, and we roll, and then we go home, and it's all right. But I don't think that's what we needed to do. It might not have been what you wanted, or I wanted on one level, but it was what is needed to happen to bring about an engagement that ultimately, if we don't go here, we can't get to where he wants us to go. That makes sense? So really, more than anything else, I want this. And if we need to camp out here for a year, we'll do it. Because we can't get to oneness without this. We can't get to a transformation of consciousness without a level of real engagement and honesty and transparency. And what you need to see today is how at times the heart can resist that. The heart can resist that. So I really, and Paige, this is where I want you guys to start dialing in, because we may shift. If I told them earlier, I said there may be a thing that needs to be expressed by way of song that then takes the teaching into an interactive thing where you can begin to open up in ways that will follow you home. Here's my goal as a teacher today. I don't need 20 people coming up going, man, that was fabulous. I know this stuff's good. It's good because it's changing my life. It's opened up doors for me. I'm 20 years at least into this, and you see where I'm still at. So I know it works. And because it's a posture of the heart. This is about intimacy. This will change some of your marriages. I'm telling you it will. I can almost see it right now, somebody getting in the car and going, honey, I need to tell you some stuff. And it's not the stuff you fear it is. It's not like you're sitting on a mountain of secrets. You may be. And that may need to come tumbling down. I'm talking about, stuff you're probably fantasizing it is. But I'm just talking about just real everyday stuff like I was dealing with. It creates shame, creates embarrassment. But this, I'm telling you, I see it. I see it. I'm not saying I see you or you, but I see a couple sitting in a car going, all right, we're getting the kids to bed early tonight, and we're going to talk. I've got some stuff I got to get off my chest. I've got to get real. You see, this is unpretentious. Doesn't seem real spiritual. Doesn't seem mystical. And there's a little bit of me that wants to make it that way. But I'm afraid, this is just relationship 101. This is relationship 121. I want you to be able to go home and the family life is open and free. One of the first things I look to, and when I'm in somebody, I'm going to scare you, won't ever have me over dinner anymore. Do the kids talk to the parents? Do the parents talk to the kids? Is there an openness in communication? Is everybody frozen? Are all the doors closed? Is anybody talking to each other? Has everybody got their phone out? Or are there times that stuff just gets put down and tossed aside, and we're engaging in issues of the heart? See? That stuff can change you. Those kind of if that's what a bonfire is about or a camp, go for it. It's huge. Intergenerational. I see some of this. I see opening up. I can remember conversations that I used to have with Griff when he was 13, 14, and 15. And just some of those things that now, 15 years later, he's 30 years old and he's mature and he's walking in a measure of beloved identity. And we get to share this together. That's what he's yearning for this family. What if we all could go after this radical posture of heart openness? Again, don't misunderstand this as spilling your guts to everybody. This is far deeper than spilling your guts. Confession's a part of it, but it's me standing in front of you saying, I'm going to engage you and stay open at every level I can stay open as I'm one in this family. And you returning that frequency. And if we can do that at the deep level of beloved identity, what can happen in our midst? What kind of transformation can take place? Now, here's the deal. I've really talked about this too long. But now you've got to go home and practice this, then we're going to come back together, and periodically we're going to go, how are we doing? And Tyler, and if you've got something else to say, I want you to, okay, good. Him coming in and saying, here's where I'm at. That's a real helpful piece today. And so, come on back in, Tyler. You said you got another piece of that. Lyndon, let me see. This is good. Y'all jump in.
I think one of the things that's helped me in this process personally, as I'm a part of the corporate expression too, is when Damon taught us about misidentification, no identification, and then authentic.
Yes.
And the frustration, probably the most frustrating part, is not the misidentification that happens. Because when you are revealed misidentification, it's very like, oh, that is messed up. And you're more than happy to move away from misidentification. But I think one of the hardest parts is the no identification. And when you're dealing with that personally, and we're dealing with that corporately at the same time, could be probably one of the most frustrating times that I can imagine. But my take on it is it's actually the time that we should be the most excited. It's okay to be frustrated, not the kind of frustration, you were talking about that makes you bitter. Yeah, but being frustrated with the transition in between those areas is a very good thing. It's okay to be frustrated because you haven't yet been, it hasn't been revealed to you what real authenticity or what your authenticity, the truest version of yourself looks like, or corporately what that looks like. But if we're somewhere in that process and we're not to that ultimate goal of real, true authenticity of who we're created to be, but the exciting part is that that's coming.
Yes.
That's coming and happening in me personally, and it's happening for us corporately. And I just kind of wanted to encourage you, like, it's okay to be frustrated. That is where somewhere in that path is the most frustrating part, because a lot of times for me in that no identification is like, what am I doing? Literally, like, what am I doing? Sometimes it feels like I'm doing nothing. But I have learned in my process that it's better for me to do nothing at that point than to go do the wrong thing. Or go do the thing that makes me feel better about myself wherever I'm at. It's almost like that reverting back, like I'm not identified, I'm not happy, I'm frustrated actually with that misidentification.
Yes.
And I'm frustrated with I'm not where I'm ultimately going to be. It's almost like Peter going back and doing the fishing thing.
Right.
It was like, I'm going to revert back to what I know. And I've at least learned enough to not do that, to not revert back to whatever it was before. But being okay with there's a time of nothing's happening. There's nothing happening in me that I can speak to. And then you turn around, days, weeks, months later, 11 years later, and realize I am nowhere near that person that I used to be. So like wherever you're at, and some things happen instantly, and some things just takes time. Like
Absolutely.
I'm not sure. I'm okay with it taking the rest of our lives. I'm not sure it's going to take that long. I don't know. But I'm okay with even the thought of it doesn't have to happen now.
Right.
Is so much different than the way we felt even years ago about, us and our generations. We've always been generationally minded, but there is an aspect of letting go of, especially for me, there was an aspect of letting go of actually it happening, those words or those promises or what I felt like was for me or was for us, and letting go of that and going, maybe it is another generation and I get to play my part today, which looks like nothing, and be okay with that, which ultimately just turns my heart even more towards the next generation. Amen. And preparing, okay, well, if it's not going to happen today, it may happen.
Right.
That promise may happen for me in my lifetime, but if it doesn't, in the interim, can I turn my heart towards, preparing that next generation or preparing for what's coming? How do I participate in that promise coming to pass or that identification? My kids don't have to deal with what I had to deal with as far as who that I thought I was, and now transitioning to ultimately who I'm supposed to be. That happens for me every day at home. Mm-hmm. But anyway, just encouraging you that, like, in that misidentification to no identification, whether it's happening for you personally, you're in that, or you're moving into authenticity, and yet we corporately, I feel like, are in that somewhere in that no identification, and or wherever we're at. It's just my opinion. But ultimately, regardless of however that affects, if you're frustrated, it's okay to be frustrated, but we really need to turn that into excitement for what actually is for what we're ultimately supposed to be doing, and what our real authentic expression. What does he want to do in the earth? And just admitting that there are some misidentifications that we still all are a part of, that we've inherited, or that were models that we looked at and helped get us to where we are today, but that there's more to come, and that interim is always pretty frustrating.
It is. It is. Thank you, Landon. That's real helpful, isn't it? To go back to the template of misidentification, no identification, which the other word is formlessness. And we're in a formless moment. Some people use the word liminal moment, from the word not lemon that you eat, but lemon, L-I-M-E-N, which is a threshold. When you step on a threshold, you're in between worlds. And I mean, you listen to secular people, and they'll use the phrase right now, we're in a liminal moment. We are. World systems are changing. I don't want to get on that subject, but there's a lot shifting. There's a lot that's why we can't go back. Our country won't go back to what it was 2 years ago. We just can't. We live in a different world now, and we're in between. So that applies you personally. It also applies to us corporately. We've had that discussion in the last few months, even with Damon, about this, that church as we've always known it is not probably what it needs to look like or will look like. So there's this anticipation of, oh wow, where are we headed? But it's going to require the letting go of the old. That's hard, and that's where it's easy to get frustrated. Frustration is a part of a liminal moment. Look how frustrated our country is right now. Look how polarized. Everybody's frustrated. You can't even get on an airplane without getting in a fight. So there's just a lot of craziness going on, but it's high level of energy because it's confusing. Who are we? Where are we? What are we going? And that, on a less intense level, that's where we are. This body's healthy enough to step into that. You and I joked, I think we did, Sharon, about I could have never had this conversation in a Baptist church. Baptist churches I know of never handled the pandemic like we did. And it's just been interesting. I got a brother-in-law who's a Baptist pastor, and just talking with him about how the conversations he can't have or they're not having that we're doing right now. And we're navigating, we're hanging in there. And it's like, that's part of it. But process the frustration. Don't use it as a creative opportunity to propel you into something that's ahead of you. That's huge. So embrace the formlessness. Jump on in here, man.
This may be too transparent, but
no.
There is I actually have two things. One of them piggybacks on what Lyndon's saying. Is if I have to go through misidentification, no identity to get to the authentic version of me, then I also, this is me personally, with Abba, and this has got me kicked out of any church I ever attended. With Abba, that has been a process too, where I had to take off the misidentification I had towards him, but then that left him just as naked as it left me. And so then I'm not talking about the existence of God or if he's good. I'm talking about, like, who are you? What do you want? Because if all of this is not who you are and none of this is what you wanted, then I don't have a clue. And if I'm going to get to the authentic version, that for me has been probably the predominant frustration, is if I don't really know who he is, then how am I ever going to get to who I'm supposed to be? So I feel like I crossed that part. But what I really, when you said earlier that you felt blowback, so talking about the being with people and being this way, I'm not much of an open book personally, except for those that I am with. And with those that I am with, I feel like there's nothing I could not say. And it's because if I say something that's not right, they'll tell me. So make sure you're not surrounding yourself with yes people. All right, people that can tell you, man, that's not right, and it will actually leave you encouraged. For me, that conversation, I'm going to tell you who it was with because they may not want me to, but I don't want to take credit for what they said. But I don't want to make it formulaic, but if step one in my head was identifying God the wrong way, and step two was identifying my heart the wrong way, then step three would be me clearing out my head to see the real God, and step four would be where I don't think that I am, which is seeing him right in my heart. But 2 and 3 happen at the same time. Really uprooting out of my heart who God was not was coinciding with step 3 of really this apostolic information overload of who he really is getting into my head. And as I'm thinking through this stuff and I'm looking at the Bible, I'm like, this is right, and what I've always thought, it's just not there. Like, I can't even find, stuff I used to preach, I'm like, I can't even find it in there. Like, it just doesn't say it, you know? And, like, that was pretty scary.
I hear you.
Like, that's not in there. Like, I convinced a whole lot of people they're going to go to hell. Like,
that's scary.
There used to be this kid get saved every week. Like, and we were eternal security people. Every week. Because we convinced people how bad they were, right?
Wow.
So it was the hang up on 2 and 3, and this is what I think the blowback is. If you hadn't moved to really completely getting that God who's just looking to drop his hammer on you, I know that I'm past that God because I don't believe there is anything I could do in this world that would bring eternal damnation to me. I have
That's good.
I have a 0.0% fear of doing anything that would send me to hell. Like there's nothing in me that thinks God's going to get mad at me. All right?
Can I interrupt?
Yeah.
Step right there.
Yeah.
I want you to receive that. This is where it gets real. This is the response. This is how it shifts. He just sent out a frequency that said, I do not believe there is a, need to state it positively, there is a 0.0.0 chance of anything he could do that would cause him to go to hell. I want that frequency to be received. Now, I'm interceding right now because I can feel the tension. At one level or another. It may not be on 10, but it's in there. It's in there. So there'll be a voice back here or over there that'll rise up and go, I can think of something. Some of you probably just came up with one. Well, the Bible says, you see, the argument in you will reveal something about your heart. So how does the shift occur? It occurs with somebody standing up, saying to his family, I don't think there's anything I can do. Now, what you want to do with that is to meet that with an open hand instead of an argument. Or you may have to get over the fact that some of you don't like him. That's a whole different issue. Sorry, I want you to like him. He's really a good guy, right, Whitney? he's a good guy. You see? But there is a frequency you need to receive. But if you can't receive Tyler, you're not going to receive what just came out of him. Well, grow up. Get over the offense so that you can receive a confidence that, because some of you, maybe some of the folks that are arguing, you need the frequency. You need to receive the gift, the grace gift. Keep going. I'm interrupting, but that's huge, right? This is real. Like with Lyndon standing up saying what he said, you've got to receive the giver and what's trying to be given. And that requires, at times, a real openness. Not at times, excuse me. It requires all the time a real openness. But if you do this, there's a transmission that may make some of you sleep better tonight.
It's good. Ben Robbins takes all my personal complaints, so yep. That's who deals with all personal complaints. When I say that, I say it with this kind of certitude. I used to preach. Kyle Flickinger was in our youth group in Pennsylvania, so he can attest to this. I would preach, and all these kids come up, they'd be getting saved, and I think, I'm God's gift, is what they think. But while they're down here getting quote unquote saved, I'm saying that prayer in my mind because there's a fear in me. I mean, I'd say it all the time because I felt like that was the formula. There's a fear in me. If I didn't say it right or if I didn't do this, like, he's going to send me to hell. So they're all up here and everybody's getting their praise on because these kids are getting saved. I'm saying the prayer with them. Like, I'm not getting them to repeat it because I think I know it. I'm trying to say it because I don't want to go there.
Yeah.
And now I can say, like, first of all, it's so stupid. And then even go back and read the verse that you think makes your argument valid because it probably doesn't say what they told you it said. Because that was my problem, is I just took what they told me it said. That's not what it said. Mm-hmm. But the step 2 or 3, how I moved into ultimately being done with that version of him. I was talking to someone who I love very dearly. I was telling them this is my issue. Here's my current frustration. And they said to me this, and this made me want to crawl under a rock. They said, for me, it was when I realized all these years I've been pointing my finger at religion saying, you're doing it wrong, and this is y'all's problem. And I mean, I don't know all of you, but the ones of you that I do know personally, I know you're like me, you probably did some of that in the church you were from or whatever, because it wasn't enough. It wasn't what you felt like it needed to be. And so, but they said, well, I always pointed my finger at that, and I hated religion so bad and talked so bad about it. And then I got to a point one day where I realized what I was pointing at was actually still inside of me. And that, for me, turned into a realization that some of that hatred, I like myself, I'm start with that, but some of that hatred was actually turning into self-hatred because I hated religion so bad and I could not deal with the root of it that was in me, which was actually a misidentified God that was in me. And when they said that, I felt like that was what helped propel me out of that version to find myself frustrated again in a good way with what I would in my personal, I don't think it's a formula in my personal life, I'd call step 4, which is getting all that good stuff I know about him now from here to here.
Yeah.
But if you feel the blowback of, man, I still scared he's like this or that, deep inside, and that's stuff that the system of religion, I don't know what yours was, mine was that version of him that was always wanted to send you to hell. That stuff gets deep. And it's not, especially if you're not a very emotional person, which I'm not, so it's hard to identify sometimes because you just rock along with life. And then you feel that thing stirring inside of you. It's easy to suppress that, but go ahead and let that be completely dealt with. If you feel blowback to what he's saying, I surmise that you're probably stuck in that mode of still trying to get that misidentified version of him out of you. And Lyndon said about the frustration, don't let that be a negative thing either. Just pun on that version of him.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
It's as simple as like I know that's not who he is, so I'm not going to think that way. And just because my heart is not just overflowing with that yet, I'm not going to revert to, I would rather him be that way than no way at all.
Absolutely. Isn't that good? Yeah. We may be reaching a little threshold point with some of our kids, but that's okay. Parents, feel free to do what you need to do. We roll pretty good with that. Yeah. I'm just, man, I feel that. You feel anything at all? I don't want you to feel any pressure at all. If you don't feel anything musically, then we won't do it. But if you do, if you feel like there's a sound or a word that needs to come through a song, then let's do it. What that needs to look like. You do? Okay. All right. Then So y'all, Paige, get who you need, and y'all do that, and that will. What I want you to do is be ready, just as you've received from me and Lyndon and Tyler. This is going to be a piece that's going to help do some shifting. Okay, so that's going to become important. I want you to listen to me while you're watching. All they're doing is going and getting ready. You've seen that a million times. You don't need to be distracted by that. But I want to set you up for a new way to encounter this, and that is, don't default back to we're gonna jump into worship. I don't know what they're going to do. I'm leaving that up to you guys to kind of help us there. But I feel like there's going to be a piece that can now seal this deal and that can send us out of here prepared to really go after whatever he wants us to go after in terms of getting this shift inside of us. So thank you.
choose to love you, God.
just let that declaration just sink in. I want you just to receive the expansive place of His goodness. It's so big and so deep and so wide. There's no way you can fall out of this. I just want you to receive that breath. Yeah, come on. Let that word become real personal right now. Safe because He's good. Period. Yeah, just receive that. There's a real encoding in the sound right now. There's a real encoding. Let that go in. Just let it go in. I declare over you, He who began a good work in you will bring it to completion. This shift will be finished in you. You will not abort this. You cannot. His love for you is forever and complete and unconditional. His arms are wide open. He cannot not give you what He's giving you today. And if for whatever reason you are troubled in mind and spirit right now and you feel like it's not getting through, it will be just as available to you tomorrow. He says, I'm not going anywhere. I can't go anywhere because I am love. His commitment to your beloved identity is forever. He saw it. He saw you before the beginning of time. And there's nothing in Him that can pull back or withdraw. He sees you finished. So just receive a goodness that maybe you can't even completely understand. I can't, but I'm going to receive. I see this sound and this message today changing futures. I see the end of the movie changing. The end of your movie. Decisions you made years ago that put you in the seat you're in right now are changing outcomes of children who have yet to be born. You have no idea how big this is, how important you are, how significant your journey matters. So open wide. Open wide. Let all the love that He wants to give you, let it come on in. Let it come all the way in. Let it reconfigure. Hila hamana randashe. Randiaraba kokoro ishande estabos. Hidianda shanana kalaliasta maroko. Kenakania asimba rotesitasha. Romakara. Andie shenena makaliba. Kela kanando. Kela kanando kamostia. Inamashi. Anda ho. Rabasi. I speak peace over you. Speak peace over you. In the midst of uncertainties. In the midst of a future you cannot see the end of. It will go well. Choose this day life. Hope. And it will go well. I say to you today, all is well, all is well, all is well. All is well. Yena rianda rebabashita relo stondishinia yende aliashta horiabasiba. Tyler, come up and read that scripture over the family, and they may keep playing, but when he speaks this in terms of this part, we're done and you're free to go and whatever, but I just want you to receive this today. Receive your inheritance. Hear this declaration. Hear this truth of the gospel.
Ben sent this to me a while ago. He said, here's the proof. Our faith in Jesus transfers God's righteousness to us, and he now declares us flawless in his eyes. This means we can now enjoy true and lasting peace with God, all because of what our Lord Jesus, the Anointed One, has done for us. Our faith guarantees us permanent access. Our faith guarantees us permanent access into this marvelous kindness that has given us a perfect relationship with God. What incredible joy bursts forth within us as we keep on celebrating our hope of experiencing God's glory. Then your argument, but what if I did this? Or what if I have bad times? Or what if my circumstances are good? Or what if I sin? But that's not all. Even in times of trouble, we have joyful confidence, knowing that our pressures will develop in us patient endurance. And patient endurance will refine our character, and proven character leads us back to hope. And this hope is not a disappointing fantasy, because we now experience the endless love of God cascading into our hearts through the Holy Spirit who lives in us. Verse 2, our faith guarantees us permanent access into this marvelous kindness.